Okay, guys, this video is for Chapter 1, Section 2, Adding Integers. We remember what integers are. They are positive and negative numbers and zero. Integers do not include fractions, decimals, or percents, so we do not have to worry about those yet. Those will be in our next chapter. Yay! Remember to press pause and copy down the notes as we go through. Okay, we're going to use a number line to add 5 plus negative 3. To do that, we start at 0 and then we move to the right 5 units because it is a positive 5. And we know that moving to the right is our positives. And then we're adding to it. So you would think that we would be going to the right, except that it's a negative 3. So we're actually going to go to the left 3 spaces. And where we stop would be our answer. So since we move 3 spaces left, we end at 2. So therefore, 5 plus negative 3 equals 2. Okay, let's try another one. We're going to use this number line to add negative 4 plus negative 3. So we start at 0 and we move left 4 spaces because it's negative. And then we're going to add to it, which means we're going to come to the right because add means increase. But because it's negative, we turn around and we go 3 more spaces to the left. And where we end is our answer. So we end at negative 7. So negative 4 plus negative 3 is negative 7. One more here. We're going to use the number line to add negative 7 plus 7. So we start at 0 always. We move to our first number, which is a negative 7. So we go to the left 7 spaces. So that's its absolute value, right? Just thinking of these things. And then we're going to add to it, which we move to the right, and we continue to go right because the second number is positive. And we go back to the right 7 spaces, and where we end is our answer. So negative 7 plus 7 equals 0. These numbers have a special relationship. When two numbers are the same distance from 0 but on opposite sides of 0, they are called opposites or additive inverses. So imagine 0 being where you would fold the number line. Any positive will match up with the negative, and those are at opposites or additive inverses of one another. So the sum of an integer and its additive inverse or its opposite is always going to be 0. They cancel each other out. I like to call them zero pairs even. So 7 and negative 7 equals 0. So that's a 0 pair. And negative 3 plus 3, those are also a 0 pair because they cancel each other out. Same distance from 0, but on opposite sides. Okay, so going back, remember how we used a number line to add negative 4 plus negative 3? We went at 0, went to the 4, and then went 3 more. Can you look at these numbers and see another way to get 7? If I ignored these two negatives here and just had 4 plus 3, wouldn't I just get a 7 itself? And then I just bring over the negatives because it's like 4 negatives are floating over here and 3 negatives are floating over here. So altogether we have 7 negatives. So this is our first rule of adding integers with the same sign. You definitely want to write this rule down. When adding integers with the same sign, and remember, press pause if I'm going too quickly so you can get it down. But when we're adding integers with the same sign, add the numbers, their absolute values. So you ignore the signs for a minute. Remember, all absolute values are positive, and you keep the sign. So 6 plus 13, absolute values are 6 and 13. So I just add them. 6 plus 13 is 19. And then I keep the sign, positives all the way across. So the answer is 19. In the example here, I'm adding two numbers with the same sign. So I ignore the sign. I take their absolute values. They're always positive. 3 plus 9 is 12. And then it says keep the sign. So it would be negative 12. So that's how we add integers with the same sign. We add the numbers and keep their sign. What happens when we're adding numbers with different signs? So here on the number line, remember we started moving to the right 5 spaces, and then we moved left negative 3 because we were adding a negative 3, and we ended up at 2. If I ignored all signs, what's another way that we could get 2? Hopefully you caught on that 5 minus 3 does equal 2. And that's important when adding integers with different signs. You want to make sure that you get this rule down in your notes. When we're adding integers with different signs, remember to press pause. Make sure you get everything written down. We subtract the greater absolute value, so the bigger number, minus the smaller absolute value, or the smaller number. And then we keep the sign with the greater absolute value. I like to think of it as a tug of war. So I say, who's stronger? So when I look at this problem right here, I'm adding two numbers with different signs, right? So as soon as I see different signs, I know I'm going to subtract the greater absolute value minus the smaller. So absolute values are always positive, so I have 9 and 7. So I do 9 minus 7 and I get 2. And then it says keep the sign with the greater absolute value. Who wins in a tug of war? 9 negatives pulling on this side or 7 positives over here? The 9 negatives have more power, so they win. So the negative goes on to the answer. It would be -2. In this example here, I have 12 plus -5. Again, the signs are different. So I look at them both as positives. They're absolute values. I have 12 and 5. I subtract 12 minus 5 and I get 7. And I look at the numbers and I think in a tug of war, who would win, the positives or the negatives? And the positives would win here. So the answer is +7. Okay, so remember when we're adding integers, when you're adding a positive integer, it's going to increase the value. It's going to go up like a helium balloon, right, with this positive. But if you're adding a negative number, it's going to decrease the value. It's going to go down like a sandbag, and that's our negative, kind of holding that balloon down. Just to kind of get an idea of what's happening there. So I'd like you to pause and try these 6 problems on your own. Remember to ask yourself, do they have the same sign or different sign? And then follow the appropriate rule. So press pause and go ahead and try these. Press play when you're ready to check your answers. They should be done in your notes. Okay, and here's the answers, and hopefully you got them all correct. We have same sign here, so you add the numbers, keep the sign. Here we have same sign, so we add the numbers, keep the negative sign. Here again, we have same sign. So we just add 20 plus 15, which is 30, and then we keep the sign of a negative. Here we have different signs, right? So it says subtract and keep the sign of the stronger number. So 11 minus 2 is 9, and then who wins the tug of war? The positives. 9 plus -10, the signs are different. So we subtract. 10 minus 9 is 1, and then who wins that tug of war? The negatives. So it's -1. And here we have that special relationships of additive inverses or just simply opposites. When you add those together, they make 0. They're a 0 pair. All right, this list here shows 4 bank account transactions in July. Find the change in the account balance. So we withdrew a couple times and we deposited. There are more than one way to solve this problem, but what we need to do to find the change is we need to add all of these together. So I add what happened my first through fourth transaction in July. And I'm looking at this problem. I have -40 plus 50 plus 75 plus -50. And I see this relationship right here. These guys here are opposites, right? So they add up to 0. So they kind of go away. They cancel each other out. That's the shortest and quickest way to do this. So we're left with -40 plus 75. And now we're adding two numbers that have different signs. So we have to subtract. Bigger number, 75, minus the smaller number when they're both positive. So we're looking at 40 and 75. Who's bigger? 75. So 75 minus 40 gives us 35. And then who wins the tug of war? The negatives or the positives? Who's stronger? Who has a greater absolute value? And the answer is the positives. So we have 35 because it has a positive or a greater absolute value. And then we have here, it said that the change would be it increased $35 in July. So those are our notes for 1.2. Make sure you write down any questions. Make sure you have those 2 rules memorized. Know them as best as you can because they will be your best friends as we move on in this chapter and in the next chapter. Okay.